So it was not my intention to do another podcast today. I was planning on just sitting around watching Victor Wembanyama, hang out on the couch, pick a new book to read, all that good stuff. But midway through the day, Adam Schefter reported that the Bears asked permission from the Cowboys to talk with former Packers coach Mike McCarthy. So I got home and I was like, who can I talk to about this? And I know some people in Dallas I could have hit up, or some people in Green Bay. And I was like, nah, call Rahimi. Call Rahimi, tell her to get the receipts ready and ask her about this. So Layla Rahimi was nice enough to jump on with me for a few minutes so that we can figure this out. Thank you for doing this. We always appreciate when you join House of L.
You're welcome. I don't want to be known as the coaching transaction person on House of L, but I feel like that might be what's happening.
I think you should be known as the coaching transaction person on House of L. We need it.
Victor Wembanyama already in the game. And they've just started that third quarter. Has 17 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 blocks.
Yeah, and they're all on Vooch. Vooch has been having a rough night with Victor patrolling the paint.
He's not the only one. The Spurs have 6 blocks total, man. They're showing up. So
yep, they are.
We kind of knew that would be the case with Wemby. Here's my issue with Mike McCarthy is I think he may be using this smartly as leverage with the Cowboys because he is a free agent. And the Chicago Leverage is a very popular team, as we know. They might even be in the league on the midday show on 670. But I think that when it comes to his record specifically and why he would be a bad fit for the Bears, we would have to dive a bit deeper. This screams to me rebound hire. It would scream to me every response that they have that's been critical against Matt Eberflus in a way that would respond to those direct criticisms, but not actually address an overall standard. For example, there are a lot of people who talk about Marcus Spears, for example, citing how many people respect Mike McCarthy in the Dallas Cowboys locker room, how he is considered a leader. One of the quotes that McCarthy said recently was, quote, "I'm a builder. I believe in building programs. I believe in developing young players," end quote. That is music to ownership's ears, is it not? That is exactly what they want to hear if they want somebody who they think is developing a young quarterback. They probably want to cite McCarthy's experience, not just with the Packers, even though his clock management in 2015 against the Seahawks is what ended up undoing him and Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers was just fine without him after that, by the way.
And then we saw the clock management show up again when he was in Dallas.
Oh, all the time you did. That's an article that I was actually reading recently. There was the NFC or there was the game against the Eagles. What was this? It was 2021, the halftime game where he didn't use a timeout, didn't do anything, just let the clock run. And it didn't matter because they won at the time, but it's just an indication of how that has not fixed for him. There's multiple indications here of his time with Dallas where he didn't use the clock properly. And that's been a reputation of his going into his hiring with Dallas. And it's because of what happened in Green Bay. But here's the other thing. Who was really developing Dak Prescott? Kellen Moore was the Cowboys offensive coordinator for 3 seasons from 2019 to 2022. He overlapped Mike McCarthy. They kept him whenever McCarthy was hired in Dallas. His record against the Bears, right? That's been brought up so many times. It's 19-7. So that's something that people want to point to. His record in the NFC North, largely with Aaron Rodgers, 57-24-2. And I understand the Cowboys had significant injuries. But to me, unless you have Mike McCarthy coming with a huge analytics staff that isn't on the Bears right now, who's better at in-game time management, and Kellen Moore, this isn't the solution the Bears might think it is. Think about what he's done in January. The playoff appearances alone are super frustrating. I mean, in 2023, they laid that absolute egg. It was January of this past year. Laid an absolute egg. They gave up 48 points to the Packers at home in the wild card game. Ridiculous. Then there was the year before that when they were arguably a favorite to get to the NFC title game. They beat Tampa Bay in the wild card, but then they lost to San Francisco in the divisional. I believe that was also at home. So, like, once again, they're losing in the divisional, and then San Francisco lost to the Eagles in the NFC title game. In 2021, the playoffs, they lost to San Francisco in the wild card 23-17. I think that was the home game, actually. But the point is, his record in the playoffs has only had one win since he's been the head coach of the team. And that was not supposed to be the case for the Cowboys, especially with Dak Prescott and all the stars that they have in that team. They also prioritize offensive line. That's partially why Prescott has been better. You know, they actually draft offensive linemen in first rounds. So to me, that's really what this comes down to is he's saying the right things. He has the right record on paper. But the game management alone should indicate that this is a person who should be a red flag for your team. And I understand you're probably making the playoffs if he's your head coach. But are you winning in them? Recent history would indicate that's not the case.
Your point about the leverage, I think, is really interesting because, and so then, you know, when it happened, I'm like, all right, I immediately was like, who's Mike McCarthy's agent? So it was Trace Armstrong. It's no longer, he's got Don Yee as his agent now. But that was like and you know what? That's really sad that that's a default setting that all of us who are around or covering the Bears, we all have to be like, wait, is there some sort of weird connection with Trace Armstrong, with any of these coaching candidates that are available? And it's so annoying. It's so upsetting that is something that we have to take into consideration whenever we mention someone's name in this. Like my first feeling was, no, I don't want that at all. I am not a fan of his. Even when he was with Green Bay, I'm like, they could do better. And I think they have. Now, granted, they haven't won a Super Bowl, but I think that they could do, I think that they have a better coach now than what they had before in Mike McCarthy. And I just, he just seems like it's the worst type of reflex for the Bears to have for them to make a hire like that. You know what I mean? And be like, oh yeah, the guy that used to beat us when he was at Green Bay. Well, there was a reason for it. And I don't want to take away, to me, he's not like Luke Getsy, where it's just he's in proximity. I do think that he played a role in Rodgers' development, which is a mark in the good category for him to try and get the Bears job. I just think that there's enough data on him as a head coach that says he's all right, but you can do better.
That's it. You're raising your floor, but you're not really raising your ceiling. And that's my issue is once he gets to January, what is his team going to do? And the history indicates that team is going to disappoint, especially if Kellen Moore is not with the team anymore. And you see what they're doing in Philly. I don't know why Kellen Moore is not a candidate here.
He'd be someone I would talk to.
I have yet to understand that. Why has his name not been brought up? In all of the names, like we're hearing David Shaw, we're hearing other people. And Don Yee is also the same agent as he also represents Jim Harbaugh, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So is that going to be an issue? But McCarthy smartly may have put himself in a bidding war, but the Bears shouldn't be the ones to do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting from the Cowboys perspective too, that I actually like, this is the one time where I like Mike McCarthy's strategy. Like, this is, if he kind of let it be known, hey, I wouldn't mind talking to you if you want to talk. I think that's pretty good strategy for maybe how he feels about where things stand down in Dallas. I think that's smart. That's smart business. Like, for the business of Mike McCarthy, this is a really smart move to put yourself in play. If you did it through back channels or whatever, to up your dollars to stay with the Cowboys.
Well, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think here's where it gets interesting, though, is the Bears could have waited about 10 days and they'd be able to not need a permission slip to have Mike McCarthy's interview. So I don't know why the 10 days was so important for the Bears to ask permission from the Cowboys whenever there's this exclusive negotiation period, I believe until January 14th, regarding McCarthy. So I find that kind of odd.
Yeah, when
But
you could be spending all of that time up until then interviewing the candidates that you need to talk to before their playoff series start, or interviewing the candidates that don't already have jobs. You can spend the next 7 days just doing that.
yeah, like David Shaw, you could interview him right now, I
Or Pete
assume.
Carroll or Mike
Yeah.
Vrabel.
And Pete Carroll's name is not officially connected right now, which is interesting. Like that
Not
is not
yet.
somebody who's on the list.
Not yet, but I want, because I mean, at least they don't have to ask anyone for permission for him or for Vrabel. But yeah, those are honestly, Layla, those are interviews you should have knocked out already. Like,
Frankly, yeah,
look at
Vrabel. I don't know why you couldn't talk to. Maybe there was an issue with Vrabel's contract. I'm not sure. Or
maybe,
maybe
but there's
there's
no
a rule
reason you couldn't talk with Pete.
maybe there was a rule that the NFL had. Yeah, Pete maybe, but like maybe there was a rule the NFL had regarding interviews at all for head coaches. You know, I know they changed a lot of those rules.
I mean,
But
it seemed like the Jets were out here making moves.
they were, but they also famously hired the 33rd team to help them.
Yeah.
You know, that they hired a media site / NFL conglomerate to help them get through this. And I don't know. McCarthy, you know, the other piece of this, he had that meeting and he was hugging his assistants, which he doesn't normally do after the game. So I think he thinks his time in Dallas is done, or at least is going to address people like it could be. But I get why they would want to hire him. I just don't know that he's going to raise your standard. The other piece of this is, you know, famously, because the Cowboys prioritize offensive line in their drafting, is that they give up fewer sacks. But I don't necessarily know that that's a function of McCarthy's coaching as much as it is just having a better line. So I'm not real sure what plays into what there, or again, how much Kellen Moore developed Dak Prescott outside of what you're seeing now with Schottenheimer. I'm not real sure about that. I tend to give Kellen Moore a lot of credit for those years that he had in Dallas.
Before I let you jump out of here, for people who don't know, what's it like to be the Cowboys head coach?
I mean, I think you're the king of the state, you know. No offense to D'Amico Ryans and the Texans, but every move you make is going to be criticized, but I don't think it's criticized to a negative level that it is here. Like I think it's still harder. I think it's still harder to be the head coach here because in Dallas, like they're I don't know how to put it. People are just happy it's Cowboys season sometimes. They want to win in the playoffs, but then there's also this just acceptance because of the Super Bowls in the 90s. Like to me, I was very mad when the Eagles won the Super Bowl from a Cowboys standpoint. I was thrilled for Philly. But I'm like, how could you not use this to try to get better? To understand that those years have very much passed you by. You haven't been in an NFC title game in 30 years. And yet, somehow, this defiance of that is still something. Like the Cowboys are an entertainment product, you know, like it's I don't know. I don't know what the demand is there anymore when it comes to the standard, which is why I feel like it kind of would make the same sense here. You know, if your standard is get to the playoffs, but maybe not winning them. But to me, like, I don't know how you don't look at Dak's years as somewhat wasted.
I would definitely look at Dak's years as being somewhat wasted.
The whole talent on that team. You know, like the offseason Jerry Jones just had where he was defiant about not wanting to sign players to legitimate contracts. Like, what does that say to free agents? You know, your way is not your way or the highway anymore.
What
and it hasn't been for a long time.
What does it say about them not allowing Cooper Rush to get his bonus money?
I mean, that's another thing. You know, that sounds like a Jerry Jones special. But to me,
so whack.
I just like I don't know what it's kind of like. We talk about the Bulls and we don't know what we're cheering for. Like I don't know what the expectation is for Cowboys fans in Dallas anymore.
I'm here for the Bears spreading a wide net, and I know that I sound like I'm contradicting myself because I do want them to interview a lot of people, and I guess that McCarthy falls into that category, and I should just be okay with it. It's just that there's a couple of guys that I know that you have to interview that I wouldn't want them to hire, and he's on that list for me.
The scary
Like,
part about Mike McCarthy is that there's a high likelihood the Bears would hire him.
oh yeah,
Like
I
that's the scary part, is that he's already said the right things, and he already has the right resume, and he
mhm.
already has the right record. And if you didn't watch the games, then you would be okay with it. But we have.
That last point is a great one to end on because that's it. Like you can look at the numbers. It's one of those things where the numbers don't tell the story. But if you're watching, whether it was Packers games or Cowboys game, that's it. You know what the limitations are on
Like
Mike McCarthy.
even the playoff game, it wasn't that close. It wasn't 48-32 close. It was like
Now that game
48
was
to
over in the
27
first
close.
quarter. It was
Yeah,
over.
that was a whooping, and that was embarrassing. And if all you do is try to get to the playoffs to lose like that in the wild card at home to what we thought was an underdeveloped Green Bay team, come on. That's a joke. That's not real.
Facts. Layla, as always, I appreciate you stopping by House of L.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
got done with my workout. I was watching Bulls Spurs and just, listening to Mark Grote's Bears hit 2 words. I'm glad that we've earned our way back into 2-word category.
It might be back to one word after the press conference. We'll see kind of where things stand.
Oh yeah, that press conference tomorrow is going to be really interesting, but the player sound yesterday was too.
Yes, it was. But thank you for jumping on to the pod and giving us some background on Mike McCarthy. And there's gonna be I realized that driving home, I think I'm gonna be potting like every night. Like until they hire someone, there's probably gonna be a lot of stuff to be talking about.
I think that's going to happen.
Mm,
Yes.
mm. All
Yes.
right,
And
stay
I
out of
appreciated
trouble.
your D-Rose pod, by the way. After
Oh,
being
thank
there
you.
on Saturday, especially, that was a great listen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And people when they check out the pod and they see that you're on it, uh, Layla equals clicks. Like people want to see your opinion on stuff. So
Well, thanks. Sorry about my face. It's makeup free today, so that's what's happening. And
are you done with like cardio stuff or what? Because I
oh,
wasn't there like
cardio week came to an abrupt end when I was landed on by a person in heels at a charity event last Monday,
that's right.
and my foot is completely black and blue. And I wish I were kidding, but it is gross. And I've iced it all the time, and I've followed protocol, and I'm thankful it wasn't worse. But this is the first day that I got back into the cardio because I wasn't able to do much for a couple days.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you're back on the mend and everything is okay. And I
Thank
know the
you.
store is going to have you for a few more days this week. Talk about all sorts of stuff. But thanks for dropping by House of L and giving us all the Mike McCarthy information we needed.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, good for him. I understand he's earned it, but good coach, but just maybe not this team.
Maybe not this team. All right. That is Layla Rahimi, and we are out.